On Wednesday of this week, Donald Trump spoke to the nation and the world in what he called Liberation Day. During this address, Trump outlined what tariffs are coming, when, and thus we now have a much better idea of how these tariffs will affect us as consumers. And today I'm going to be breaking down everything that you need to know about these tariffs, specifically in the context of the car market. Now, during this address, there was a lot that was covered, but there were two specific topics that were talked about more than others. First is reciprocal tariffs, which is a new tariff policy that's going to be going into effect, which is just that whatever a country tariffs us, we will tariff them back, in some cases equal to what they tariff us, and in some cases less. But another major focus was auto tariffs, specifically the 25% tariff that's going to be implemented on all cars imported into the United States. And as of 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, yesterday, all cars imported into the United States are subject to a 25% tax. And according to 2024 data, these imports account for about half of all new cars purchased in the United States. Mexico is the largest source of these imports, sending 2.5 million cars to U.S. dealerships. Canada ships another 1.1 million, while an additional 3.7 million come from countries outside of North America, including South Korea, Japan, and Germany. And to give you an applicable picture of what this looks like in execution, the average cost of a new car in the United States is right about $48,000. And so with this new 25% tariff in mind, for the average new car, a tariff would cost about 12 grand, theoretically bringing that $48,000 car price all the way up to 60 grand. Now, obviously, the discussion of tariffs isn't just simply, oh, there's this tariff applied to this item, and thus it's going to increase in cost by this much. There is a ton of debate, and really since the conversation of tariffs started, this has been a hotly discussed topic of who is actually going to pay for the tariffs implemented on these imports. Now, many people believe that whenever it comes to tariffs, the importer is the one who pays the tax. Others say that it's absorbed by the customers, which is why tariffs result in price increases. Now, traditionally speaking, the cost of a tariff trickles down to the customer through higher prices. But in the context of these historical tariffs that we're seeing today, it's actually unclear exactly how this will play out in execution. Now, obviously, I am not a tariff expert, but I think that it's a sure bet that automakers are absolutely not going to absorb the entire 25% tariff cost. In my opinion, there is no reality where they absorb 100% of that tariff. But I also think that there is a likelihood that they're not going to pass on 100% of the cost to the customer either. And truthfully, if I was a betting person, I think that the amount that the prices are going to increase for each automaker that's importing cars into the United States will depend on the automaker, the trim, the model. It'll ultimately come down to profit margin of that specific car and how much of that margin can go into the tariff versus how much has to be passed on to the consumer. So I think the amount that prices will increase will vary quite a lot depending on the car and make model. And I think that we will see this play out over the next couple of months and couple of years. But as I've said many times in my videos over the last couple of months, no matter how you slice it, car prices absolutely are going to be increased. It's just a matter of by how much and which makes and models will be impacted. Now, since President Trump took office, there's been a lot of confusion on how exactly these tariffs will be implemented. Because there's been a lot of discussions of reciprocal tariffs, baseline tariffs, stacking tariffs, and there's been a lot of questions on how all of these tariffs will play into one another in execution. And yesterday it was revealed that there would be a 10% baseline tariff on all countries who import into the United States. This is separate from the 25% tariff implemented on cars, and it is also separate from the reciprocal tariffs that I mentioned earlier. Now, one of the things that we did get clarity on yesterday is how these different tariffs will stack up on one another. For example, with a baseline tariff in mind plus auto tariff of 25%, does that mean that a car would actually be tariffed 35%? And then whenever we take reciprocal tariffs in mind, if there was a reciprocal tariff of, say, 20%, does that mean that a car is actually going to be tariffed 55%? The good news is that according to Section 232 of the Trade Act of 1962, some tariffs will be excluded from stacking, including autos and auto parts, steel, and aluminum. So at least as of right now, assuming that things don't change and that there aren't parts of this that get adjusted, cars are just taxed at that 25% tariff mark, and you aren't going to see that stacking effect that comes along with the reciprocal tariffs and the baseline tariffs. But this is not true with all industries, and there are going to be specific industries that do have stacking implemented, which will drastically increase the tariff that is applied to that import. But again, in the context of the car market, this is something that was talked about a lot in the lead up to this event, and it does look as though we have clarity on it. Now, obviously, cars that are produced outside the United States and imported into the country are going to be impacted here the most. And this includes cars from a wide variety of different automakers. From Ford, General Motors, Stellantis, of course, Toyota, Kia, Hyundai. All of these cars that are imported into the United States after assembly will be subject to that 25% tariff. But as I mentioned many times on my channel before, just because a car is American made and they're not imported into this country doesn't mean that they aren't going to be subject to tariffs. And it has been announced that next month, car parts will be subject to an industry-specific tariff similar to what we're seeing with cars, but in the meantime, car parts are either going to be subject to their country-specific tariff or the baseline tariff. Now, in the lead up to this tariff announcement, Donald Trump said that cars that are made 100% in America won't have to be subject to tariffs at all. And basically, if you want to avoid tariffs, just make your car here in the States. But the problem is, and again, I've talked about this on my channel many times, is that a 100% American made car just doesn't exist. The average car is made up of 30,000 different parts, and one car can have parts imported from dozens of different countries. The Model Y is one of the most American made cars according to 2024 data, and it has between 60 and 75% American made parts. You can see here a master list of all of the cars that exist with a breakdown of what percentage of them are made in the US versus imported, and some of it will surprise you. The Kia EV6 is 80% made in America. Toyota has some cars that are 60 to 70% American made. Volkswagen has some that are 60%, and the Honda Ridgeline is more American-made than some Ford trucks. The Lincoln Nautilus, an American-made brand, is only 5% American, with 87% of its parts coming from China, a cost that will be huge for Lincoln. I think that this is really interesting because it really goes to show that the context of American-made cars is really nuanced, and there's a lot that goes into it. And some of the cars that you would think would be very American-made are in fact not that American-made. And I do predict that this will make navigating the car market even more difficult because buyers aren't really going to know which cars have the highest tariffs versus which ones don't. Obviously, it's something that we can all research, but as we all know with the car market, not all car buyers research their purchase before they make it. This means that even those brands that you may not associate with being American-made may actually be more American-made than other brands that are deemed American brands. Which means that whenever it comes to vehicle purchases, it's going to be increasingly difficult to figure out which cars are tariffed, which ones aren't, and by how much. Now, whenever it comes to exactly how these tariffs will be implemented on car parts, we'll just have to wait until May 3rd, as that's when it's expected that auto part tariffs will go into effect and be announced, similar to how the auto tariffs were announced this week on April 3rd. Now, I know I've talked about this probably dozens of times on my channel since the beginning of the year, but I think it's important to really drive home the fact that these tariffs are not only going to cause the cost of new cars to go up, but it's absolutely going to cause the cost of used cars to go up as well as the cost of maintenance and repairs for cars that you already own. Very similar to what we saw in 2021 whenever the car market absolutely exploded, when automakers didn't have inventory to support new vehicle sales, and as a result, used vehicle sales also exploded. I predict that we're going to see this exact same thing. You're going to see new car prices go up, and as a result, the trickle-down effect will impact used cars, and those prices will also go up. But once these auto part tariffs are implemented on May 3rd, this is also going to impact the cost of keeping your car on the road, because parts and supplies that you need in order to repair or maintain your car are also going to go up. And of course, let's not forget the fact that while we are talking about auto tariffs specifically in this video, because of course this is an automotive channel, these tariffs are going to be applied to a wide variety of products and industries, affecting a lot more than just people who are buying or maintaining their car. I said it just recently in a video, but if you are someone who knows that you want to buy a car very soon, like within the next 30 to 60 days, I would probably encourage you to make that purchase sooner than later. Because of the cars that are sitting on dealership lots today, those cars aren't going to be subject to tariffs. But once the current inventory of vehicles that are sitting on dealership lots, once those are exhausted, well, those cars are going to be imported under this new tariff policy, and they're going to be more expensive. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.